Yo, yo, yo. Welcome and good morning. Early morning, show
Hmm.
broadcast, you know what I'm saying? Podcast, man. We gotta find time, man. We busy, busy dads, man. You know what I'm saying? So, hopefully you got some breakfast and y'all can join us this morning, man. We're gonna chop it up a little bit about this. We're gonna talk about ADOS and FBA. And what ADOS stands for is American descendants of slavery. FBA is freedmen, no, freed Black Americans. I think I'm saying that right. I think I'm saying that right. Morning, 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 morning,
Morning.
morning. What's up, bro? What's going on with you?
Oh man, nothing much, man. Good morning to everybody, man. Welcome to Yah'm Saying Podcast, where we take truth, myth, and we go on a journey. Everybody, man. Welcome to Yah'm Saying
Uh oh.
Podcast,
Uh oh.
where we take
Yeah, my bad. My bad.
truth, myth, and we go on.
Oh man, I'm telling you,
No, you good. You
my bad.
good.
My bad. My bad. My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And we're gonna talk about this. Before we talk about that, man, we were talking in the beginning, about music, man, and talking
Yeah.
about the golden era of rap music. You know what I'm saying? And how it really is like there are a lot of like deep cut. We always bring up Big Pac, Wu Tang
Right.
Clan and
Right.
all that stuff. But there's like real like deep cuts like one hit wonders that we don't talk about.
Yeah.
Or when you listen
Yeah.
to like, oh man, that's that joint right there, man. Oh man, that was my song back in the day. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
I just listen to that stuff. When I want to go work out. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, yeah, man, it's just interesting when you think about it, and when you compare and contrast today's music, you know what I'm saying? You know, because we were
Yeah,
talking.
yeah. It's crazy on how how literally, the early 90s and the 2000 music, because like you were saying, I just was thinking about like, oh man, I gotta make sure I get up so I can have enough time to do this mic check. And the
Yeah,
first thing came to my mind was MC Light. My
yeah,
mic sound nice.
check
Check
one.
one.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? I'm just like, yeah, and this is how like, man, it was just so influential to how we grew up,
right,
and
right,
and how that was so tied to our culture, right?
right, 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 right.
Um, and I had this conversation again with my son. Is just like the problem is with y'all generation is you guys are going to be the generation that lose your culture.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
You know what I'm saying? And I compared it to this. This is the same thing that happened to quote unquote white Americans as they came over to America
mm-hmm.
when they
Europeans.
dropped being, yeah, when they dropped being, Greek
Mm-hmm.
or Mediterranean or
Or German,
Slavic or yeah,
Italian, yeah,
German,
or
yeah,
Jewish, even Jewish, the
yeah,
Jewish
yeah.
thing.
When they dropped those
Yeah,
things for exchange, as we see what's happening in Ukraine right now, where all of a sudden Ukrainians are now considered Western European when they have never done this
mm-hmm,
on the news right now.
mm-hmm,
Um, and now all of the news anchors are all of a sudden saying that they're European, and we should not be doing this to European. Well, they're dropping them
mm-hmm,
being Ukrainian
mm-hmm.
now. And it's the same thing that's going to happen to our black kids, man. They're just going to lose that culture,
Mhm,
and you can just see it and you can hear it in their conversation, and but they don't understand why it's happening.
yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with history and storytelling, man. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
We really have to tell history, and we really have to get back to, or really get back to storytelling. You know what I'm saying? I always think of them OGs, you know what I'm saying? That was
Hmm.
on the block, you know what I'm saying, whenever, just walking around talking, them OGs that come to the basketball court and play ball and stuff and like
Hmm.
that. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? They always had time to tell us a story, you know what I'm saying, of our history, you know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, America has done a disservice to our younger generation by indoctrinating them. The indoctrination that's happening. You know what I'm saying? They only get taught,
Mhm.
Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, Booker T. Washington, and Frederick Douglass. And
Right.
there's like a whole chunk of history that's missing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when it comes to rap music, man, you know what I'm saying? Like the one of the things that I just really despise about or rap conversations in general is like top five lists, right? Oh, who's your
Hmm.
top five MCs? Well, there's been like 1,000 rappers. So how are you only making a five? You know what I'm saying? Like
Right. Right.
it's always recency bias, right? It's always
Hmm.
Pac. You know what I'm saying? Like it really doesn't have any nuanced conversation. You know what I'm saying about
Yeah.
saying, oh, who's the greatest storyteller? And then when usually I'll interject and be like, Will Smith is one of the best storytellers like ever. You know,
He got a whole album of
like
storytelling.
storytelling. He has a whole album of storytelling, and he's the DJ. I'm the rapper. But again, people just go to what's familiar, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
a lot of time, like you're saying, because it's familiar, you know what I mean? It is told it's usually told from one lens, you know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? It's not, kept within the culture and things of that nature. And I think that's why, yeah, I tend to agree with you that, yeah, it's going to be a loss of culture. I think that there are, younger or millennials, who are
Hmm.
really trying to keep the culture together. But I think
Hmm.
at the end of the day, it's going to be a loss of culture. You know what I'm saying? While other people steal it, right? We've seen the
Yeah.
TikTok.
Yeah.
We've seen that happen with TikTok, right? With the dancers, right? Black dancers
Right.
come
Right.
to the dance, and then this other person, goes out and meet the dance, and they making millions and showing up on Jimmy Kimmel, getting paid
Hmm.
to the NBA All
Hmm.
Star game and stuff. And while the originators of the culture, right, black people who originate everything in this country when it comes to entertainment, uh,
Hmm.
you know, uh, we get left out. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. It is
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
Yeah. I see it on TikTok, man, and it's a few people that try to, well, I don't want to say try to. I'm going to skip that part, they're tr- they're trying to explain things in the same manner, right? Where um, they're trying to describe the language uh, that comes from hip hop,
Hmm.
but they're putting it in a generational term, right? And and it's just like when I hear it, I'm just like at 42, 43, I'm sitting here like, no, we used to use that when we were kids. Like now your generation is trying to take it. Also, the fact that it's usually a white looking person that's
Hmm.
also saying it, right? And it's just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so it's two different things that are happening.
Hmm.
And which yeah, I always find that fascinating. Man, we went down that tunnel pretty quick.
Yeah. We went down the rabbit hole pretty. We always get there, man. Yeah, it just goes down that. I mean, because it's all, it's all connected. You know what I'm saying? We like really living through history, man, and
Yeah.
things of that nature. You know what I mean? And when it comes to her, but it's connected to this ADOS FBA conversation. Again, I think
Yeah.
that there's individuals in this ADOS, and I'll explain a little bit what that is, for people out there. But in that ADOS FBA conversation, it really is people trying to the intent. I think that they're just trying to hold on to culture, hold on to our
Mhm.
heritage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
While at the same time, holding the government responsible for reparations. You know what I'm saying? Uh,
Hmm.
but at
Hmm.
times, I think that the 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 people who are pushing the message, are doing it for nefarious reasons. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
ultimately will end up with an erasure of culture and erasure, assimilation. Man, assimilation is,
Hmm.
that's really what it's about, right? It's about assimilation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And assimilation for an ethnic group is not a good thing. It really isn't. And as we've seen with poor whites in the Appalachians, they lost their
Mm-hmm.
culture. They lost their culture, language, just to be generationally poor
Yeah.
in West Virginia. Like West Virginia is like the poorest state in the world. Like one of the
Mm-hmm.
poorest, like in the world,
Mm-hmm.
not just the country of the United States. It is a perpetually poor state.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and people are leaving that state. There's probably going to be nobody in that state in about 20 years. Um,
Yeah.
you but yeah,
And
we're doing what? Go ahead.
it's actually funny that you said that, right?
Hmm.
Um, because they're starting a grassroots trying to fight back, right? Trying to gain their culture back, and they're
Hmm.
trying to become abolitionists again.
Hmm.
Because they started to realize like they literally have history lessons that are
You
going on
talking about West Virginia?
in West Virginia,
Yeah.
all the way across to Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's a project called From the Hood to the Holler.
Mm-hmm.
And from the hood to the holler, they are talking about all of these things and like how far away they have gotten away from their culture,
Hmm.
which their culture consisted of, helping runaway slaves,
Hmm.
like helping the poor, doing all of these different things. Never standing side by side by the government. They always was. It was never back to blue. You know what I'm saying? It was just like they already knew that the police were there only to protect property.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
so they lost that culture through some of them are starting to understand they lost it through their whiteness, right?
Right. Right. Yep. Exactly.
And this is the project that is happening, that's going forward. It is gaining some ground,
Hmm.
but it may be, I don't know if it's starting to die down. I kind of kept up with it for a little bit,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, man.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna get to so let's get into the origins of this ADOS
Yeah.
movement. And so there was ADOS before FBA, right? So you
Hmm.
had ADOS, and ADOS was started by Yvette Cornell and Antonio Moore. And really, it was a movement for reparations. Got picked up steam around 2016 or so,
Hmm.
2016, I think. But really, it really started really picking up steam in 2020. These individuals got together and they, started, wanted to get a movement together to make reparations a platform. I mean, a
Hmm.
policy. I mean, like, hey, if you're going to get the black vote, you have to support reparations. Now we
Hmm.
have to understand that reparations has been a conversation in our United States government forever, since the 1880s. Around that time. Frederick Douglass actually gives a speech in 1883, and he's talking about civil rights and he's talking about reparations. And also, we had other individuals. A. Philip Randolph is the one person that come to mind. He worked during the Nixon administration, and he was talking about reparations and repair to the African American community in the form of taxes. Um, he said that one way to get reparation or he called it economic justice. So that's what they were calling it. They didn't call it
Hmm.
reparations; they were calling it economic justice. Martin Luther King called it economic justice too.
Hmm.
So he was saying, hey, give those descendants of enslaved peoples tax cuts for X amount of years. I think it was like 20 years. So basically, don't pay taxes. That's one
Hmm.
form of reparations. Give these individuals generationally, give them free college or trade or skills training for 20 years. I think that's what he said.
Hmm.
Give these individuals affordable housing. So basically, the government would build a house. Excuse me. Basically, the government would build a house and then say, hey, give it to these individuals. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And there was other things, but hey, Philip Randolph and other individuals talked about reparations. You know what I'm saying? And uh, so come 2016, you have Yvette Cornell and Antonio Moore. They're talking about and also I can't remember the politician. He started. He actually put reparations up for a vote. It's been up for a vote since 1980. Where in 2020 they finally got it past committee.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking HR1, and that's the study for reparations. And it
which
finally
which is which is led by Dr. Sandy Darity.
Sandy Darity, yes, and
Yeah.
put forward by
Mm-hmm.
Barbara Jordan, I believe. So it's
Mm-hmm.
HR1 and HR40. Both are just studies for. I'm sorry, HR1 was voting. HR40 is the reparations.
Mm-hmm.
But both are connected.
Yeah.
So so it's been a conversation, been in the government. You know what I'm saying, or been a conversation in the government for a while, for a long time. And then Vet Cornell and Antonio Moore come along, and they're like, "Hey, reparations!" Starts this whole movement. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Tariq Nasheed gets involved somehow. He gets involved. These with meetings and things of that nature. And then there is some sort of rift that they had. They have some sort of
Mm-hmm.
rift, and Tariq Nasheed breaks off, and he starts FBA movement. Free Black. Okay, I can't remember what's called, but it's FBA. And so he starts FBA. He actually copyrighted FBA. So, and I think he talked about in a lot of his movies that he created. And then from the FBA movement today, what we see is a lot of splinter groups. You have Freeman's Party. You have uh, there's another one. I can't remember the other one, but it's all these different splinter groups, from it. So that's just really, the historical aspects of ADOS and FBA. But really, there's these conversations where, and it's really just on Twitter Spaces and things of that nature. But the conversations delve into really anti-immigrant sentiments. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's anti-immigrant, and then it turns into anti-LGBTQ, and it turns into sometimes anti-black, depending on who you're talking to. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's the problem with the, my issues with the ADOS FBA movement and things of that nature. But yeah. Sorry about going on the whole.
No, man. Because I think people need to hear the backdrop, right?
Mhm,
But for me, I was following Yvette Cornell
mhm,
before 2016,
mhm,
um, and it was an interesting movement at that point in time. And of course, like when you kind of go on this journey and you're trying to find that place where as a black or brown person where you need to stamp your ground to fight, right?
mhm, mhm,
You end up coming across these kind of charismatic people,
mhm,
um and you hear Yvette's her outrage, her ability to go into a topic and sort of spoon feed you,
mhm, mhm,
and you get trapped,
mhm,
right? And then that's how you kind of get into this whole thing. Like I can't tell you how many episodes that I hear, like, just going after immigration, going like, and I'm just like, well, we don't want to work them jobs
mhm,
as a black culture. So why are you attacking? And there's a portion where I can say, like, it's a portion where, yeah, what you're saying is right, but I think you attacking immigrants as a whole instead of breaking it down on how this really affects African Americans, because yes, too many immigrants in this country does affect African Americans. That is just a truth.
mhm,
But the problem is when you just say it as a broad statement, you end up attacking, let's see, the Haitians
right.
that was coming over here because of their government falling apart,
Or the earthquake, or
or the earthquake. Right.
yeah,
And it's just like it doesn't make any sense, because you know what I mean. You can even also throw in the Ukrainians. Well, why even fight that issue? Why fight that issue? We all know that they're at war. So
Mhm.
why fight the issue of them trying to find safe haven?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And our government is going to do what our government is going to do.
Do. Mhm. Mhm.
Whether it's using tactics, because again, when you have parties or people that are using racialized tactics for citizens to fight against each other for resources, this is what you will get.
Mhm.
This is what you will get, and this is the basis of our government. In
Mhm.
all honesty,
Yeah, it's basically the
um,
world. Yeah, it's resources.
yeah, yeah, it's the world. It's the world.
Mhm.
Um, where they're using race and color for who gets the resources.
Mhm. Mhm.
But if you don't understand it at the core, when you start listening to, I used to always hear like Tariq Nasheed like calling on Yvette Cornell, and like he's blasting off and he's screaming and yelling. It's just like this is how you start getting angry,
Mhm.
right? When you just don't understand the bottom of
Right.
what's happening
Mhm. Mhm. Or understand government. You know what I'm saying?
or understand government.
Yeah, or understand government because a part of that conversation, a part of the ADOS and FBA conversation is about, understanding government. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
because one of the issues with the movement is that they build this coalition that's telling people not to vote, not to participate. You know what
Yes.
I'm saying? In the voting process. Well, how are you going to get reparations? You know,
Hmm.
from a government that only understands positions of power.
Yeah.
You are operating from a powerless position. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, you sit out. Okay, well,
Yeah.
we already know what happened when black people sit out and vote, right?
Yeah.
You get Jim
Tar-
Crow.
yeah. Tariq Nasheed was he was out there on that stomping ground. What was that? What was the year that Hillary ran? 2016, right?
2016. Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
mm-hmm,
yeah, yeah. So he was out. He didn't say it directly,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
but he was saying it,
Saying not.
right? And then Yvette Cornell later on had to go back and said, "I have never told anybody to
Mm-hmm,
not vote." No, you didn't. What you did was you dropped breadcrumbs and kind of making it seem like that's what you should do.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's just like, but again, if you don't understand um, how charismatic people can be,
Mm-hmm.
you'll get trapped.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because just like you was mentioned before, I rudely cut you off.
Oh, no, no, no.
uh, uh, you know, people don't under. I was talking to this one brother who was telling me, well, he don't vote, and I said, yeah, you don't vote, but every time that it's a political issue, you seem that you want to make a post or make a comment. If you didn't vote, you shouldn't really have nothing to say because
Again,
you didn't participate.
right? You didn't participate. Like voting is just that's the first step. That's the
Yeah,
first step. Representation. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the first step. So it's crazy when people say that. Oh, I ain't voting. You know,
yeah,
it, yeah,
yeah. You got a right to protest your vote
hmm hmm
in
yeah,
the way that you feel like you got a right to protest. But the consequences are you don't get to say
hmm
or complain about how things are affected after that.
after right, yeah. And so I
It-
was
it-
in. Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
no, I would just
Yeah, yeah.
just wrapping it up, man.
Yeah, yeah. So I was in a little Twitter space. Twitter spaces, and it'd be cool. But I was in a Twitter space, and there was a young brother who said the same thing. You know what I'm saying? He said he identified as being a freedman and starting a freedman's party and stuff, but he don't
Mhm,
vote. Like, okay, and everybody in the group was telling him like, "Yo, you're operating from a powerless position." You know what I'm saying? Like,
mhm,
you're saying that the government owes you money, but you are not getting a representative to negotiate with the government. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to negotiate with the government, you know what I mean? And the United States government only understand positions of power. They only
Yes.
understand that, and we need to, folks need to understand that. But and like you're saying, with these individuals like Trina, she, you know, telling people to and I went to their the ADOS website there, and they were talking about it's ADOSfoundation.org, and they were talking about, them saying that, hey, we weren't telling people not to vote. You know what I mean? We were
Mm-hmm.
telling people who to vote for, vote down ballot. You know what I mean? Why is that important? Because it matters if you're in the room. If you're
Yeah.
not in the room, if you not don't have a seat at the table, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? You have to have a seat at the table. Only way you get a seat at the table is having representation. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, that's my issue with the ADOS FBA movement, is that it's forcing. It really is talking to a lot of these young folk, forcing them to not participate. Not
It,
participate. Yeah,
you know what's funny?
mm.
The age group is about our age and down.
And down. Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm
But again, let's tie this all to history. Um, our mothers and fathers, you figure around 70s,
hmm
stopped really participating in government, right?
Yeah,
And you
that was
start
that was around like the 90s.
right, right, right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the movement started happening from the 70s to the 90s. So you
Oh
had this
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
this
There's like
swing.
this like this sort of decline.
Yeah, right. And what happened was we end up having a flood of white supremacists running back for positions in our government. And like this is the sword that we end up falling on every time we don't participate.
hmm
Um, as you see in 2016, you
hmm
know, this is the point where I agree with Barack Obama is when we showed up in massive numbers and did not show up that in the midterm, this is usually the moment where nefarious people start flooding in.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
this is how we get the Jeff Sessions and
Mhm.
Marco Rubio, like
Yeah.
all
Crazy.
of these guys.
It's how the Tea
And
Party how Tea Party came up.
yes,
Wow.
yes, because technically as a group we
Mhm.
went to sleep.
We went to sleep. We were like, "Oh, we got the first black president."
Yeah,
2000
yeah,
2010, 2012, 2016,
yeah,
2014, like,
yeah.
sleep.
And what people don't understand is like, man, and they talk about this on Joe Madison,
Mhm.
and some people, man, it is a lot of people that call up there and say, man, I'm so pissed off at Joe Biden. And he's not fulfilling everything that he sat back and said that he would do. So I'm not showing up and voting. And I'm like, whoa. I said, look, like, and then I'll be wanting to call up there and just be like,
Yeah,
look, man, what people have to understand is one, never expect 100%.
never.
Damn near don't even expect 50%.
And that's what the numbers show, and I was gonna comment on that, but go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. But the issue is you're in a fight with someone who will offer you nothing to
Mhm.
someone who will give you a crumb.
Mhm.
And sometimes a half slice of bread.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Depending on what it is. But the problem is nothing, a crumb, or half a slice.
Yeah. That's real.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
and like when you don't vote, you will get the people who will give you nothing.
Mhm.
And then you want to complain about government
Then you want
on top
complain.
of that,
Yeah. Mhm.
which then create issues when you finally get someone like a Joe Biden who sit back and say, we need to do certain things for African Americans and so forth. And then
Mhm.
you get another candidate to sit back and have the same sentiment, but who has actual plans
Mhm.
in place. And then now you're in a conundrum, right?
Mhm.
And I'm talking about the Bernie Sanders situation. You're in a whole different conundrum
Yeah, yeah.
because you have one person who has a real history of at least fighting
At
for
least
actual people
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
to a person who knows how to play the political game of
mhm,
fighting for people,
mhm.
where he it's some things that he done, then it's some horrible things that he have done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
And then you have the other guy on the other side
We ain't doing nothing.
who's doing nothing. He's just not doing nothing. But
Nothing.
he's using some of the messages from these two people, because now you got to make a choice from the person who plays the political game and the
Mm.
person who tried to live by the certain sentiment. Well,
Yeah.
what happened is you end up taking the lesser person as a group.
Mhm, mhm.
And now we're in a place where, okay, this other guy who did nothing at all for years while he had the presidency, turn around and complain because the other guy that we have, which is Joe Biden, basically we're getting crumbs or very um, uh, things that are just similistic, in
Mhm,
value,
mhm.
like Juneteenth and all of these different things, which don't really help um, our lives get better going forward. But if you look at the history of this gentleman, this is what you have always gotten from him.
Mhm.
And these are the conundrums that we put ourselves in when we don't show up to vote. And go ahead.
No, no, and I'll say that, we really have to put the responsibility where responsibility lies, right? The
Mm-hmm.
responsibility lies in individual in the other right party, right? They
Yeah.
can legislate. They can legislate. They're choosing not to. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So while yes, we can talk about Joe Biden playing politics, but really it is about senators and congressmen who are not legislating. They are the legislative body of our government. I don't blame any president, and nor
Mm-hmm.
do I believe that presidents should be out here writing laws. I simply don't believe that. That is not their position. That's not what they are there for. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They are there to ensure that they are there just to ensure that uh that the best interest of the country is being looked out for, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's more of, the Republican Party deciding to sit out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Every they did it during Obama and they're doing it again, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And they're sitting out. And a lot of times we're like, oh, Biden's not doing this and Biden not doing that. No, it's not Biden. It's not
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it is Joe Manchin, it's Christian Sinema, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
49, 48 other senators who aren't doing anything. And then you have 20 or 140, Congress people who are doing nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. They are literally doing nothing. And then you have individuals Mitch McConnell who will then get in power, like during the Obama administration. And then you would have, individuals from the right and the left trying to do what's best for the country. But because, we sat out in 2014 and we sat out in
Mm-hmm.
2010, Mitch McConnell still retained power and he just literally let bills die on his desk. Many
Mm-hmm.
people think that the First Step Act was something that came under the Trump administration. That was actually a piece of legislation that was under the Obama administration that Mitch
Mm-hmm.
McConnell let sit on his desk and die. You know what I'm saying? Like collect dust. You know what I mean?
700, man.
It's
He
ridiculous.
had 700 bills that literally died.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
and most of these bills, I think it was like somewhere like 57%
Hmm.
pertain to like making our lives like really better.
that affected us economically
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and things of that nature. So, and it really goes to understanding voting, right? Understanding power.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to touch on real quick what you're saying about, what people don't understand is that if you look it up, from about 1960, 19, after 1965, right? 'Cause that's when Black people really started voting, or really got our voting rights back, which is
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous in and of itself that we had to get our voting rights back and then has it renewed every 10 years, which again
Mm-hmm.
shows that this country really don't like us voting, because they understand the power that we have, and they understand
Yeah,
that we will push the country, into left, you know what I'm saying, and
yeah.
to a certain degree of left, you know what I'm saying. But so when you look at it, 60%, the highest we've ever voted as a people who could actually vote, right? African Americans, the highest we ever voted was 60%, 62, I think. That was
Mm-hmm.
under in 2008. Under 2000, there's twice we voted over 60%, 2008 and 2012. Those were the two times, right? Any other time prior to that, we were somewhere in 50%. We were
Mm-hmm.
really close to like 50%, like
Right.
really close. So what does that mean? That means you're operating from a powerless position. We're already operating from not having power, whereas
Right.
the majority of people who vote in this country are white,
Mm-hmm.
and the majority of people who are white vote Republican, and the majority
Mm-hmm.
of people who are white, they vote in the 70 plus percent. They vote at I think it's like 65, 70 plus percent. They are operating in a position of power. You know what I'm saying? And add into that the individual groups who will identify as being white, certain Asian groups and certain Hispanic
Mm-hmm.
identify as being white, and also will vote based on their identity of being white. You know what I mean? So, when we're voting at less,
Hence 40% of Cubans.
well, Cuban, yeah, but
Yeah.
Cubans come from a country where they're white. And I
Yeah.
was having this conversation with somebody, and I was saying that like these individuals who are Hispanic coming from countries where they're already white, they already identify as white. They come to this country and they just identify as white, and they do,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll be like, oh, well, this is what white people do. Well, and where you move to a state that's Republican or whatever, and they're like, oh, oh, this is what we do. Oh, this is what white people do. Okay, well, I need to do this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, at the end of the day, they phenotypically look white. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any brown. But I'll wrap this up in saying that, and Jesse Jackson gave a speech where it's called David and Goliath speech. And he's talking about the election of Ronald Reagan. And he said that there was 6 million African Americans who were of age to vote, and they were unregistered, to vote. So therefore they didn't vote,
Mm.
right? They chose to sit out. Ronald Reagan only won the presidency by like a couple 100,000. So he was like, just
Mm-hmm.
imagine if those is half of those individuals just go register and then they vote. Ronald
Yeah.
Reagan's
Yeah.
no longer president, and we understand the damage Ronald Reagan did to our community.
Yes.
More than likely, we don't get the Joe Biden crime bill because Ronald Reagan
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be in the office. You know what I'm saying? And
We
then
wouldn't have cocaine flooding into our communities at the rate that it was coming in.
yeah, that it was coming in. Yeah, yeah. And more importantly, that number gets even lower. So you're talking we have voted on an average at 50%, somewhere around 50%. That number gets even lower when you're talking locally. You're talking it's
Yeah.
at 20% or less. So that's
Wow.
even less power. And here, here where we at, we seen it with Jamie Harrison. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Lindsey Graham only won by a couple 100,000. There were more people, more
Yeah.
black people who did not vote than the loss, total of, what Jamie Harrison lost by. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying
Yeah.
vote for somebody because they're black. I'm saying, this is about power. Voting is about power, and it's about understanding. And we understand it, and seeing what's going on with a lot of these states that are passing anti-CRT, which is
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
anti-black laws, their legislation, and they're really
Mm-hmm.
attacking voting rights for black people. And you know what I'm saying? They're doing all these nefarious things. And I'll say this one other point, and I'll land my plane here. They when I'm talking about power, you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about or dang, I don't forget what I was talking about. Man, I'm getting old. I lost my train of thought. Well, my train of thought. It'll come back. It'll come
Yeah, you were talking about Jamie Harrison,
back.
and the reason why you know we need to. I think you where you were going was um, these kind of races, right? This is why we need to show up, right?
Mhm.
Not show up on the internet and complain about
Mhm.
gas prices when the gas prices get high.
Mhm.
Um, but we need to show up before the gas prices get high.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And it's those kind of races that we need to find extremely important, not just through presidential,
Mhm.
but midterms,
Mhm.
local, our mayor, our city council, and so forth. And also the point that you were making about and man, and not because they're black, man.
Mhm.
Not just because they're black, man. We look. This is what the Republicans used Clarence Thomas, Tim Scott. This is
Mhm.
what they used them for.
Mhm.
And you're starting to see them go to that model a lot more
Mhm.
now
With
because
Herschel
they have nothing else. What's that?
with Herschel Walker running for
Yeah, with Herschel Walker,
and he put his
like
together.
yeah, and you're starting to see them use this tactic because they have nothing else to fight against in culture but the culture.
They have nothing to run on. They have nothing
Yeah,
to
yeah.
they have nothing. They have nothing.
So because they think that you're going to just vote for someone that is black, they're just going to give you someone who's black in face but white in thought.
Yeah, because they think we vote for people because they're black. Like that's
Yes,
never been the case.
yes,
Never. You know what I'm saying? Well, maybe for Obama. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But
yeah,
that was a once in a lifetime thing. But
yeah,
we never voted for someone because we're black. We voted for them because they were represented the community.
yeah, yeah.
That's they represent policies, and that was for the community. Anytime, like, why you think Jesse Jackson was popular? Why you think,
Mm-hmm.
Marion Barry, you know what I'm saying? Barbara Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
Why you think Maxine Waters keep getting elected? Why do you think, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not because they're black. It's because
Yeah.
of their policy. And people like to push this idea that, oh, you only voting for the black. Yeah, so what? At the same time, so what? Because at the end of the day, white people were voting for Trump because he was white. Like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
So at the end of the day, and the reason why I'm saying so what is because we're just in an era of unprecedented. No, I won't say unprecedented. We're in another era of anti-blackness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yeah, so okay, so what? So,
Right,
you
right.
know what I mean? Like, okay, yeah, like, yeah, I am voting for them because 'cause they're black. Yeah, okay. And,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I believe we have to be that way because the opposition thinks like that. You know what I'm
Actually, you just actually so yeah. I said what I said, right? When it came
Mhm,
to like we got to stop voting for people for that, but you threw in the nuance
mhm, mhm,
to it, right? Because
mhm,
it is a nuance.
mhm,
Yeah, don't vote for somebody that is black, but also, yeah, I voted for them just because they're black.
mhm. Yeah.
But doing that, you need to find the blackness in them, right? And
Mhm.
when people say that, they're not talking about the way that they talk and so
Yeah,
forth,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because we had always had educated black people that
Mhm,
spoke very well in our culture. We
mhm.
always had that.
We've always had that,
Um, the thing of blackness is understanding the struggles
yeah. Mhm,
at the bottom of that blackness
mhm.
and carrying them upwards.
Yeah, and it's about community. It's about,
Yeah, yeah,
community, you know what I'm saying? It's about, like you're saying, understanding, the
yes.
holistic, right? Holistic approach. That's what it's about. It's understanding that, you know what I'm saying? I just remember what my point I was trying to make. So when it comes to ADOS and FBA and them talking about not voting, right? And Freedman Party and all these other
Mhm.
individuals talking about not voting again, the reason why it's a powerless position is because you had Trump, who was president at the time, put in the most judges in the history of any president, put
Mm-hmm.
in conservative judges at that, you know what I mean? Quote unquote conservative judges. Now, our courts aren't supposed to operate based on politics. Our
Mm-hmm.
courts are supposed to be uh, um, objective, right? They're not supposed to be subjective, right?
Mm-hmm.
They should be, just judging things based on the law. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
politics are on the outside of that, but that has changed. You know what I'm saying? And it's changed because Black people had the audacity to come out and vote in 2008. But and also now 2020. But the thing I was saying is that so Trump appoints all these judges, right? The Supreme Court is 6-3, conservative versus or conservative and Republican versus liberal and progressive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even Katanji, I'm messing her name up, Katanji Brown, who will be appointed. She's just taking the place of another judge. You know what I'm saying? So it will be
Mm-hmm.
6-3 when she gets in there. The thing is this: is if you ask for reparations, let's just say FBA, and ADOS succeeds, and they beg and they don't participate and vote, and the government's like, you know what? Here's your reparations. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you think? What do you think the opposition going to do? They're going number one. They're going to ensure that it's state controlled. Number one, they always ensure.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you aren't paying attention to, that's what happened to a lot of the COVID relief. A lot of COVID relief, instead of federally going into people's pockets, it went to the states, and then the states determined who got what. Right, which is why the states were forcing a lot of people to go back to work, which was a dumb decision for a lot of states. Right, rather than them taking that federal money, giving it to people, and allowing people to spend it in the local economy. You know what I mean? They were like, no, we're going to take it and do something else, and y'all need to go back to work, and they use that money for something else. So that's voting. That really, who's your governor, right? Who is your governor? Your governor determines money that flows down into your community. So number one, they're really going to say that states need to control the money reparations. 50%, over 50% of Black people live in the South. You know what I'm saying? And that number probably going to be 60% here in the next 10 years. So when that happens, when the federal government decides, FBA, you won, we're giving you money, we're going to put money back into, we're going to give you your reparations. The states are going to beg and say, we'll determine who gets the reparations. What do you think that they're going to do after that? If the opposition party is in control, where they're
Mm-hmm.
going to take it to the courts, and
Mm-hmm.
and the courts more than likely would rule in the state's favor, saying that, oh well, what about this white person who had a Black ancestor? Because there are a number of
Yeah.
white people who have Black ancestry who was enslaved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are a number of white people who had grandparents and great grandparents who was passing. You know what I mean? Meaning they were
Mm-hmm.
Black. They were Black, or they labeled them as mulatto on their, or colored, on their
Mm-hmm.
birth certificate. So you're going to have that. And we actually, and I'm not making this up. You know what I'm saying? This happened. You know what I'm saying? Joe Biden gave Black farmers $5 billion because they were left out of the farmer relief bill under the Trump administration, right? So
Because two black farmers got the money out of the whole, I think it was like 500 and something farmers out of Trump's
yeah,
bill.
yeah, it was less than 1% of 1%
Yeah.
that got money. You know what I'm saying? So Black farmers like, hey, we were left out. We need money for farming. So Joe Biden was like, the Biden administration was like, okay, we'll give y'all money. Give you money. And then what happens? Well, you get white people led by Stephen Miller, who's a racist.
Mm-hmm.
He takes it to court, and right now those Joe Biden gave them that money in 2020. Here we are in 2022. Those Black farmers haven't seen a cent of that money
Yeah.
because it's tied up in the courts.
Yeah.
Uh, why is it
And,
tied up in the courts?
and
Because we operated from a powerless position, and we let Trump become president of the United States. He elected the most conservative judges in the country, and they are the ones deciding whether these farmers get the money or not. Again, which is ridiculous. considering the FBA position of not voting. You know what I'm saying? But go ahead, bro.
Yeah, no, no, I was great. I was great. Jumping there because so Stephen Miller and know that they on legal terms, they know that they don't have a case, right?
Hmm.
Because that's just simply going down through the numbers and then breaking down the numbers of the discrimination of the last funding, right?
Hmm.
And they know that they don't have a case, but what they're doing and the tactic that that you are breaking down that they use is always time.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
same thing with reparations. If we can get these groups to check out and not vote and do certain things, we can buy time by putting people
Time.
into certain positions. That way, when it comes back around, they can unilaterally fight when we don't have the power.
When you don't have it, or come back
It,
and say, oh, we need to go take their reparations back.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like this. They're thinking on a 30-year plan when we're only thinking on a two.
Right, right, right. And that's a lot of the reparation conversation is cut a check, cut a
Yeah.
check, cut a check. Which again, cutting a check don't make any sense. It really doesn't make any sense, 'cause just cutting a check. And the reason why I say that is because of taxes.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? I'm reading a book called The Whiteness of Wealth, right? And
Mm,
in that book, it talks about taxes, and the woman she's a tax lawyer, and she
mm-hmm.
talks about how her parents paid more in taxes than the average white couple, married white couple, right?
Yeah.
Because generally, when black couples get married, both of them are working. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And because both of them are working, both of them are paying taxes. You know what I'm saying? And because both of them is paying taxes, generally the white family, only one person is working. So black
Mm-hmm.
families have been subsidizing white families for like, decades. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And generally, and because we do not have people to lobby for us for taxes, um, we end up paying more in taxes than we
Mm-hmm.
need to. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Which I need to find a tax person, but so I'm not paying as much taxes. But we end up paying more in taxes. So if you're saying cut a check, cut a check, cut a check, well, what about the taxes? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
What about your property tax? Which is why I agree with A. Philip Randolph in saying that, hey, exempt African Americans from taxes, for a certain
Mm-hmm.
time. You know what I'm saying? A certain amount of years. You know what I'm saying? I agree with that, and I would, extend that all the way down to property tax. You know what I'm saying? Hey, no property tax, no taxes, pay no tax,
Yeah. No taxes. None. None.
none, zero, no taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah, you can cut a check. You cut a check, but you're gonna end up paying taxes. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, people with this idea of, yeah, buy land, but you're gonna pay taxes, and you're just passing on that tax
Mm-hmm.
generation,
Mm-hmm.
not understanding that you have to put something on the land. That's where the money, you know what I mean? That's where the money comes in. So whether
Yeah,
you
and that's where you also save on your taxes.
and that's what you also say when it's what you put on the land.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the fact that you own it. you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
land
Yeah.
land is relatively cheap. It has always been cheap.
Yeah.
To where
Always about what is the land producing,
was it
right?
producing? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Our country was willing to give away land, gave away land. I'm,
Yeah.
in land grants. You know what I mean, to
Mm-hmm.
Europeans and Anglo whites and some black people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, because it's relatively cheap. Land is cheap. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, yeah, man. So when it comes to when it comes to the argument of reparations, we have to really take a 10,000 foot view of
Mm-hmm.
how do yes, okay, we get this reparations, but how do we keep it over right? We've been left out of the economics for over 100 years, right? Well, how do we
Mm-hmm.
keep money, within our culture, within our community for 200 years? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're talking about like vouchers for 4-year colleges, 2-year college, things like that. No taxes for X amount of years. I say 25 to maybe
Hmm.
45,
Hmm.
somewhere in that ballpark.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll settle for 35. But
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And just when you think about that alone, When you think about that, just alone
Mm.
being able to say, man, me as a black person, I can go to work
Hmm.
and there's no taxes taken out of my check.
Right.
So now I save 20%.
Yep.
I save 20% each time I get paid. So also my children, as they go forward, look, children, decide on what you want to do, whether it's being in the trade field or you are, going to college. It's paid for.
Hmm.
I have none of those worries
Mm.
because I keep in mind this is the other dynamic that people don't understand. African Americans, when you're talking about heart disease and all of these other things and
Hmm.
anxiety and all that, we are also. It also stems from how hard we have to work,
Hmm. Hmm.
to be able to get these very things to get our kids to school,
Yeah. Yeah.
to get them an education, because other groups don't have to work as hard
Hmm.
because things were passed down to them using the government.
Using the government, man. Yep. Yeah, that's a key.
And
That's a key. Go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, no,
No,
go
no, no.
ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, you good, man. Don't this.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and that's a key point that in a lot of these FBA ADOS spaces, they don't make the connection, right? They don't make the
Mm-hmm.
connection of how white people in this country got the majority of their wealth, right? Because the United States government built suburbs for them, because the United States government built projects. A lot of the projects Black people live in Chicago, New York, they were
Mm-hmm.
built for white people. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Because they were given FHA loans at low percentages, because of unions, because they had good union jobs, and Black people were left out of, union jobs until like the 70s. You know what I'm saying? And that's when you were talking about, when Black people start falling out of voting. Well,
Mm-hmm.
they become unions, they start making money. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, I ain't got no care in the world, so I'm not voting, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Martin Luther King, talked about that. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, bro.
No, so I do got to push back on that, because like I said, I listened to Yvette, and this is where she's good at. So she will dive into articles like to
Mhm,
what you were just saying, or dive into some kind of policy,
mhm,
um, and she was really good with pointing those things out about the land grants and so forth. Now, where I got to jump off the train is it never gets to a point where it's basically saying, hey, but to go forward, we need to collectively as a group
mhm, mhm, mhm.
be on that same train
Right, right. Mhm, mhm,
without any, and I'm not placing bigotry on her or anything, but I'm saying without that, because what I'm saying is some audiences that call
mhm,
have shows a little bigotry and so forth, and it's just like, well, you didn't really need to do that to sit back and be for a certain policy for your group, like
mhm,
that it's just uncalled for at that point in time. we
mhm.
we understand the issue,
Yeah.
um but but she does have those moments where she's diving into those things.
Yeah,
um
yeah, yeah, and I was and yeah, the point I was making was like while it's diving into the history, you know what I'm saying? When it breaks off into these other splinter groups, right? They're not
mhm.
having that same conversation. You know what I'm saying?
Right, 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 right,
So
right.
whenever, because I've been in a lot of, the spaces where Tariq Nasheed is hosting a lot of these spaces and he's not having a conversation. You know what I mean? It's grievances. It's really anti-immigrants. It's really about
Mhm.
Africans coming to the country. And
Mhm.
it really is just a lot of arguing, you know what I'm saying, over grievances, right?
Yeah.
And it's never, as I was telling one young brother in the space I was in last night, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's never a conversation about, hey, this is how white people made wealth in this country. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? They had the representation, they had power, right? And
Mhm.
but like we were saying, a lot of those Europeans had to give up their culture for assimilation. They had
Right.
to give up their culture for assimilation in order to attain a lot of these things. You know what I'm saying? So, they gave up their German culture, Swedish culture, Italian culture, you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
some places, not all, Chicago and Jersey and New York a little different. But, in the South, they gave that up, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that they can get wealth, you know what I'm saying? And really, it really misses the point to where it's just about grievances. And I understand where their grievance is. I truly do understand their
Mm-hmm.
grievance, you know what I'm saying? And their grievance is misplaced because they're attacking the government when they really should be attacking capitalism. And that's why,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
hey, look, your grievance isn't with the government. Your grievance is that uh Amazon don't pay you enough, or your company that you work, the
Right.
UPS don't pay you enough. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah. Yeah.
your the problem is that you don't want to do the work to unionize, to get people together, to force pay, or you know what I'm saying? And things of that nature. So that is part of the conversation that they don't have. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
they don't talk about urbanization. They don't talk about globalization. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? While yes, immigrants come to this country, they come to this country because America somehow in some way played a part in the draining of resources within their country. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and like tell one of my German coworkers when I was in Germany, and they were talking about how Africans are going to, like, France has a bunch of Africans. They got a little, you know what I'm saying, that,
Mm-hmm.
that go to that country. I was like, yeah, because they speak French. I was like, they're a African country and they speak French. So if France is draining their resources, and they need to find a living, well, they speak French. So where are they gonna go? You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Like
Right.
where,
It's a perfect fit.
you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, they speak French or they speak Portuguese or they speak German, like, because you were
Mm-hmm.
already in their country. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
you forced them to learn your language, and you
Yeah.
forced them to force them to drain their resources. So now they have to make decisions because they got to survive. It's about survival. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? They're like, well, I can learn how to speak some English, so I'm going here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And things
Yeah.
of that nature. You know what I mean? So they don't have that conversation. You know what I mean? And it really leaves room for bigotry. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It really leaves room for bigotry without understanding capitalism, without understanding economics, without
Yeah.
understanding our justice or our government and how it works and how it operates. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really my issue with the whole ADOS FBA movement, and
Yeah.
and a lot of the rhetoric, what I mean, that comes from that. Um, yeah, there was some dust up with Yvette Cornell and FBA individuals. You know what I'm saying? Again, it's turning on itself, right? It's
Yeah.
starting to eat itself. You know what I'm saying? Because it doesn't allow for nuanced conversation. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And especially when Yvette Cornell's wearing MAGA hats. You know what I'm saying? She deleted that video, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah, she deleted that video. Uh-huh.
Oh. I can guess why she deleted it.
No, what's that?
So even listening to a lot of Yvette Cornell's takes, some of Tariq Nasheed when he called in, like you can kind of get into like how they really politically think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but you can also pick that apart by the callers, right?
Right, 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 right,
So the callers or majority of their base still ain't funking with the Republican Party like that
right. Mm-hmm.
because they know that they're racist as hell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they also recognize the racism in the Democrat Party, but they
Mm-hmm.
can pick on who's playing out that racism. You know what I'm saying? Like Manchin and Cinema.
Mm-hmm.
They like they're smart enough to pick those pieces out,
Mm-hmm.
and they also can go into what they always bring up, Joe Biden's racist history, but again, they're smart enough to sit back and say, okay, but policy.
Mm-hmm.
So from me hearing that, and then also kind of knowing a little bit, yeah, she took it down because most of her base is still not on that wave.
But she's trying
And
to get
she,
him. She was trying to get him there. That's
yeah, 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 yeah.
what
That's the whole plot. That's
mm-hmm.
the whole plot.
Mm-hmm.
It but it's always been the plot. If you listen to her, if
Mm-hmm.
you listen to her for years, it's always technically been the plot to pull you away from the Democratic Party,
Right, right.
which is fine. But pulling someone into a party who has no policy for um a group that is outnumbered
Mm-hmm.
it is like it won't work. It just won't work.
It's a powerless position. You're not. It's
Yes.
not. It's not a position of power. Again, black people, eligible African
Hmm.
Americans who have the ability to vote. We do not vote nowhere near 80%.
We'll
Nowhere.
all be over there smiling like Tim Scott.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, cotton to Congress. That's what I call 'em.
Yeah. Oh.
Congress, man. You always bring that up. You know what I mean? My grand old cotton to Congress. Like, yo, hey, come on, Tim, man, come on, dog. But it's a powerless position. So yes, so when people look at the number, they're like, well, 80% of black people always vote Democrat, but only 6% of only for 50% of us only vote. So
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
a very misleading number. It's very
Yeah.
misleading. And you
Yeah.
are only supporting because and here's the white supremacist part of it, right? Yvette Carnell was part of Progress, I would say nefarious too. She was part
Hmm.
of Progress for Immigration Reform, right? Progress
Hmm.
for Immigration Reform was funded by John Tanton. John Tanton was an anti-immigrant, anti-immigration. Not only
Hmm.
that, he was connected to Pat Buchanan. Um,
Hmm.
Pat Buchanan, who ran for president, um, he didn't really like David Duke, or he didn't really mess with David Duke like that. You know what I'm saying? But he agreed with David Duke's message so much so that he adopted his anti-immigrant platform.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So why I say all that? Because it's really connected to white supremacy, right? John
It's the
Tanton
alignment, man.
John Tanton himself was a white supremacist. You can Google John Tanton, John Tanton, and see all of the anti-immigrant organizations that he funded. That the
Hmm.
that have been deemed racist organizations. So she sits on the board of Progress for Immigration Reform. I don't think she does anymore because people called her out for it. And her whole point was like, oh well, I work for Bernie and all this other stuff, and like,
Hmm.
yeah, but that doesn't mean you were there for good reasons, right? You could have been
Right.
to be a to be a to be a plant. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know the details of that. You know what I'm saying? But I do know that you're sitting on a board funded by a white supremacist, and then you start a movement. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And you have a message and rhetoric that's already dwindling the power of black vote. That's already small. That's non-exist. That is pretty much non-existent. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And we're only voting at 50% during this midterm. And people complain about Joe Biden in his State of the Union speech. But people got to understand, Joe Biden was talking to those 50% of people who are going to vote in the midterms. He was not
Hmm.
talking to people who don't vote. He was not talking to the 18
Or
to 30
may show up.
or may show up. He was not talking to you 18,
Hmm.
30 year olds who not going to show up during the midterm.
Hmm.
And more importantly, you ain't going to show up during any local elections, right?
Hmm.
In which you should. Again, you're operating from a position of power. A lot of it is a generation of people who think that, oh, if I throw a tantrum enough, people will listen to me. Like, no.
Man, you
Again,
gotta clip that out.
what's
You got that part that you just explained. You
what's
need
that?
to clip that out,
Hmm.
um, and post that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just explaining like when Biden was talking about the police,
Defund the police.
and yeah, yeah, um, when he kind of went on that whole rant, he
Mhm.
wasn't talking to the young progressives,
No,
right?
wasn't.
Because the young progressive, the problem is you show up on the streets and by the millions, but when it's election time, you don't show up.
Ninja smoke.
Yeah, yeah, you just blowing smoke.
Yeah, ninja smoke, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is what you cry about what happened to Bernie, but you the one who caused Bernie to lose.
You didn't register. Be
You
the
didn't
for the primary.
register. You ain't show up.
You show up. You didn't show up.
You know what I'm saying, and it's just like
I tell people that
you,
all the time, man.
you got to understand the political fight that's going on and what's happening,
Mm.
and
Power.
power in
Oh,
numbers.
man, power. Yes, numbers is power, man. People gotta understand that, man. Power, man. You know what I'm saying? Part of what Martin Luther King did was, which was a strategy, was to get the media to show what was happening in the South. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Because of
Hmm.
power. He understood the power of media. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? The reason you can see so many of Martin Luther King's speeches is because he understood the power of media. You know what I mean? He
yeah,
understood the power of somebody, you know, the imagery and stuff like that. And that moves people, to get civil rights legislation done, across the
yeah,
aisle. You know what I'm saying? But again, today it is people who really want to take us back, man. They really want to take us back,
yeah.
and a lot of them are skin folk, man. A
So,
lot of 'em are skin folk, man.
so I think I sent you something about that South Carolina is the 18th state that signed on to re remending the Constitution.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. What do they call it?
Yeah,
They call it the what are they calling that? They call it. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And it's the Confederacy. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. So again, man, here, man, people gotta pay attention, right?
Hmm.
And I hate this because me and you, we have these conversations, but sometimes we may post it on Facebook, and
Hmm.
those will be the things like nobody even decide to read,
Hmm.
and then we get then it happens, and then all of a sudden everybody is just outraged that it happened.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, it was probably somebody that dropped it on your Facebook, but you decided not to read it
Hmm. Hmm.
because it wasn't important because it's not Kanye.
Right, right,
You
right,
know what
right,
I'm saying?
right. Oh yeah, there are a lot of people that tell you about Kanye.
Yeah, yeah. It's just
Kardashian.
like, nah, maybe you need to get your head out your ass and pay attention to things that really affects you.
Hmm.
Um, but so the nefarious act that's going to happen again, we kind of laid it out, this whole conversation is the reason why South Carolina is trying to jump on board, and probably going to be a couple other southern states
Hmm.
and probably midwest states, is going to be um they have a small window that they're trying to jam everything in.
Hmm.
Well, if they can rewrite the constitution, what do you think they're going to go after?
What
The
do you think?
13th,
Think
the 13th,
the
the
14th and
14th,
the 15th
the
Amendment
15th.
and the 15th Amendment. Yeah, exactly. And
You know,
really, let me see here. And they love quoting Thomas so well. I tell you, man, he's a he's,
oh my gosh.
he's their Negro speaker, their Negro whisperer.
Oh, the same guy that don't want to have a conversation with Sandy Darian.
Yeah, man.
Because
Yeah,
the reason why he don't want to have a conversation with Dr. Solidarity is because he would literally destroy every point that this guy Strowell makes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like Solidarity, man. I do. He go hard.
Yeah.
He went hard on Bree.
Oh man.
Yeah, he went hard, man. But yeah, man, this is what we're talking about here. And a lot of these states in the green, you know, some in the yellow, of course, the former
Hmm.
Confederacy right here, right?
Hmm.
Former Confederacy. Um, you know, So it's and of course they're inviting more into the Confederacy,
Hmm.
um, and that's what we're talking about, of course, Alaska, uh,
Yeah.
you know, and that's really the game plan, man. That's really the oh, hold on. Let me see, because I shared another screen. Hold on. Let me see here. Stop screen. All right, let me see here. Share screen. Share. Let me see here. There we go. Okay, now there we go. Yeah, former Confederacy, man, right here.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's really what they want to do, And again, it goes back to voting, right? Power,
So,
right? You know.
so you know the uphill battle, right?
Hmm.
That they will have.
Hmm.
So Texas and all three large cities, they had anywhere from a 28% to 30% increase in African American population.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah,
Um, Now, South Carolina
they got an
also
about
had,
increase.
yeah, also had an increase in African Americans.
Hmm.
Of course, Georgia did, North Carolina did,
Hmm.
and even Florida.
Hmm.
So, so the issue and the problem that they run into is you honestly start to see them place laws
Hmm.
is to stop your ass from voting.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Again, a powerless position, right? Put you in a powerless
Yeah.
position. Again, which again makes the ADOS FBA, conversation about not voting a silly conversation. It really does. Um, because again, these they want to change the Constitution, and
Hmm.
again, they're not going to change it. That is inclusive, right? Because
Right.
I'm most definitely one of them individuals that believe that the Constitution need to be rewritten because it's not inclusive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not inclusive, and they would change the Constitution to be non-inclusive,
Yeah.
to be even more racist than the original document, and even more
Hmm.
racist than the original founders wanted it to be. You know what I'm saying? To force assimilation and to
Hmm.
maintain a racial hierarchy. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, maintain that racial hierarchy. That's just what it is. You know what I'm saying? That's But again, trying to tell these individuals, that we are in an unprecedented, well, not unprecedented. We are in another time, another fight for our uh um existence, our survival. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And to choose to sit out is just ridiculous. It just is
Right.
ridiculous. And and people will always, you know, operate from, you know, it's just ridiculous, man. And it's tough, but at the same time, we have to, infiltrate, and be a part of a lot of these people's be a part of the conversation in order so that these folk can we learn. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, man. What the ADOS man should be doing, right? They should be going, putting the funds together, going state to state, and registering black people to vote.
They ain't doing that.
Yeah, right. I know they're not. So this is what I'm getting at. It's
Mm,
just this is how nefarious you get down to is I'm going to give you a platform to complain, but I'm
mhm.
not going to give you anywhere or resources, even though I'm asking for your dollars to support, but I'm not giving you nothing back
Yeah,
to move your complaint forward,
mhm.
or so you don't have no complaint.
And that's the Tariq Nasheed platform, man.
Yeah.
Somebody called him out on that. How he he is selling books and selling songs
Mm-hmm.
and selling his museum and everything like that. And all he does is get in these spaces, and it's grievance spaces. It really is.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been in a few, man. I mean, like I was sitting there for like an hour, and I'm like, this dude is really talking about nothing. Like Tariq's a funny dude, man, and he knows he's
Yeah, he
funny.
is.
Yeah, like he's a funny dude, man. He really is funny, and I think that he could, he'd be a good comedian. But at the same time, he there is no plan. There's no plan. There's
Mhm.
absolutely no plan, man. The plan is just to complain about, this party and that party, and again, put forward this false notion that the Democrat Party hasn't done anything for Black people, and that's just not
Right, right.
true. You really have to get into the weeds and the nuances to
Yeah,
understand what the Democrat Party has done for Black,
yeah,
and to
yeah.
understand that Black people wouldn't be where we are today, right? You see the majority of us moving into the suburbs. Um,
Hmm.
we wouldn't be here today without, being at first infiltrating the Democrat Party, because
Hmm.
Democrat was party was full of racists, and then creating, and having a voice, having our seat at the table. Um,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
can
You go.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was going to chime in another thing. Like you can also go into the labor, the hiring, um,
Hmm.
where hiring for African Americans dropped off when Trump got in office.
Yeah.
So less African Americans were being hired. Then you can also go and check the wages
Hmm.
by each group.
Yeah.
Also, they started paying African Americans less.
Less after the Trump
So,
tax cuts, right?
so after Trump lost, literally black people lost wealth
Hmm.
at
Hmm.
the end of his presidency.
Hmm. Because we were losing it through his presidency, right?
You're
One of the
right.
things that people don't understand is that what you're alluding to is that, one of the ways that African Americans have been able to make that upward movement is by being hired in the federal government. Well, Trump was putting he, he was ripping up a lot of Obama's EOs that said that, hey, you must hire a certain percentage of African American
Hmm.
minorities, as they would labeled it. You got to hire a certain percentage. Make sure make sure equality, diversity, blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
Trump going there like diversity.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And they
yeah.
were not hiring Black people at all. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And Trump had a history of it. You know what I'm saying? He did own some apartments where he didn't want Black people living there. So it's not. I'm just saying. Uh,
Wasn't racist.
yeah. That's what they say. Hey, he wasn't racist. You know what I mean? People love to point out Joe Biden, but
Yeah,
they're like, man, like
yeah,
Trump was a racist, man.
yeah.
But it is it's no coincidence that at the end of Trump's presidency, Black people we lost businesses, we lost
Hmm.
jobs, all of which could have been saved, by the way. All of which
They,
all of which could have been saved, you know what I'm saying? Especially Black small business could have been saved and protected. Again, we have to address the PPP loans, you know what I mean? Well,
man, fired the czar, man. Oh yeah, Trump did do that.
yeah,
He
he did.
fired the czar,
He's firing
who
a bunch of
can,
stars.
yeah, who was supposed to be over the money that's distributed out to small businesses to make sure everybody got their fair share, and it wasn't racially targeted. Yeah, he
Right.
fired that person
Hmm.
because that person started complaining about, oh yeah, it was being racially targeted.
It was racially targeted. Who could and couldn't get a loan? You know what I mean? Which
Yes.
is why you'll see, people complain about Joel Osteen getting a PPP loan, Tom Brady, you know what I mean, and all these
Hmm.
other businesses that weren't small business. That's not what the loan should have been. It should have been
Yeah.
went straight directly to
LA Lakers got it.
yeah, man. It was just ridiculous, man. Understand something. People need to understand something, man. The Trump administration was about making wealthy people wealthy. And here's my
Hmm.
other point of reparations and going back to taxes, and understanding that, you know, the reason why reparations, the conversation cannot just be about cash, it has to be about taxes, is that in a provision in the Trump tax cuts was that um, um, when I forget what it's called, but when the children of wealthy people get passed money, they generally had to pay taxes on that money.
Hmm.
Well, there's a provision in the Trump tax cuts that they don't no longer have to pay taxes for that, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Or not as high taxes, for it. That's done on purpose. That's how you keep, you make sure your kids
Yeah.
got wealth. You know what I'm saying? So again, if we do, if reparations did happen, and you wanted to pass that on to your kids or your grandkids, well, how are you going to ensure they don't pay taxes on it? You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? They
Mm-hmm.
are going to lose the wealth over a period of time
Right.
because of passing it on and paying taxes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm. If they don't, make the right economic decisions to maintain the
Right. Going out and buying a strip club or something.
yeah, doing wild
Yeah.
stuff, man. And that's what we would see, right? If reparations did happen, man, it'd be so many TikTok people like, yeah, doing the MC Hammer thing, man,
Yeah.
buying homes with with waterfalls, and
Yeah, man.
we honestly look, we have
Sitting on TikTok with an arm full of money like this.
money.
Yeah, I'm out here balling, man. I just got this Lamborghini.
Yeah,
That
I got
motherfucker
these.
ain't worth shit in a year.
Yeah, I got these reparations, and look, man, we ain't making it up, right? Because there are people out here who out here, they're balling on a budget, man. They'll go out here and buy, their outfit be worth $1,000, but and their rent $1,800, man. Come on, dog,
Mm-hmm.
make it make sense, dog.
Mm-hmm.
Make it make sense, man. You balling on a budget.
Yeah.
You ain't
As
got
as as they say, everybody out here capping.
yeah, everybody out here capping, man, capping,
It,
man,
it
capping.
just that's that right there when you kind of get into like, yeah, man, you can't cut the check.
Yeah,
Can't cut the check because the psychological damage of what this country has done
yeah, mm-hmm.
to us have not been remedied.
Right, because we're a consumer.
Which again, this is where I don't understand. If I was white, I would say, yeah, cut them the check, cut them the check,
Because we're
because
gonna
right
spend
now I
it.
own I own this, I own XYZ, and I know that money's coming back to me.
It's coming back. It's going to come back, which is, we're going to tackle that, about that the myth of a circulating dollar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's going to come back because you don't own it. You know what I mean? And we're
yeah,
going, we eventually will talk about the myth of Black Wall Street. You know what I mean? One of those things that a lot of black people didn't own stuff. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It was a small number of people. But
Yeah, we're gonna get
we're
into
gonna
that one.
yeah, we're gonna get into that one. I think that's gonna be a fun conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Eye opening, man. But yeah, bro. Any we wanna wrap this up, man. And
man. I'm gonna wrap it up by saying, I do. So I'm 50-50 on the ADOS, man.
mhm,
I like the groundwork, right? Um, and the platform in that basis, but again, man, I just want everybody to also be careful of some of the message that you get from them,
mhm,
right? Do your research and never go in accept message of punching down.
mhm,
You know what
mhm,
I'm saying? Because it never gets you nowhere. I was talking to matter of fact, you were on the same group chat where we were talking to our cousin, and my point was, basically the saying is one injustice don't justify the other,
mhm,
right? And the point was like, yeah, you can go and say, oh, well, this person has more grievance than that person, but at the end of the day, they both have grievances.
mhm, mhm,
And punching at each other will never ever get you in anywhere.
mhm,
It is the point is it shouldn't be no injustices.
mhm,
Period. And that's how we need to start looking at things without trying to attack someone else for going through injustices, man. I
yeah,
think we need to get past that. I think we need to learn to align um, and understand, is this a lengthy fight, right? Is this fight going to take more time
that's
than this fight?
progress.
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah, yeah. So
mhm,
so that shorter fight, we're gonna jump in here, we're gonna smash this out, get this done with. This
mhm,
this longer fight, we're gonna be a little more strategic about how we're gonna fight. But doing this whole thing where, yeah, I'm not gonna fight that because I'm not an immigrant. I'm American because I can go back 5 generations. Like it's just not getting us anywhere.
mhm,
And if we don't start pulling people in, it'll just die. as we starting to see with our children's generation, because
Mm-hmm.
they ain't gonna give two rats ass about no reparations. I'm telling you that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They don't give a god darn that their great grandparents didn't get paid shit,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that's just where we're at.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot across a lot of different ethnic groups. Hispanics are doing that too. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
them, the younger generation, they don't speak Spanish. They don't recognize the country they come from. They have a Spanish last name,
Mm-hmm.
Cruz,
Mm-hmm.
Cruz Rubio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fuentes. Gonzalez. Like they have but they don't speak Spanish. They're like, I don't recognize that stuff. I only know about me. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
and they're crew. Yeah, 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 man. So I'm gonna say that part of what you're talking about, and that we need to recognize, have an agenda. You know what I'm saying? This book right here, man, The Defeat of Black Power, uh, Civil Rights and the Black Political Convention in 1972. That's what they were addressing. Trying to get Black people to come together on to have a Black agenda so we can be on one accord. You know what I'm saying? So that we aren't having so much. There's going to be disagreement. You know,
Right.
but the disagreement shouldn't tear us apart. You know what I'm saying? The
Yeah.
disagreement, we are going to not agree on what goes in the boat, but as long as we agree where we're rowing, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this book was about. And it's really, it's not that bad of a read. It took me a while to read, but it's like it's like 200 pages. So you get through it. But they really had an agenda, for Black people. You know what I mean? And the reason it didn't work is because of what you're talking about. It, they didn't come out of the 1972 National Black Political Convention with a Black political party
Mm-hmm.
because there were just too it was just too many factions trying to get their own piece, trying to
Mm-hmm.
take power and say that, when it comes to Black people, this is only it. You know what I'm saying? Where it's
Mm-hmm.
multifaceted, right? We can have
Yeah.
disagreements and understanding that, yeah, and both sides can be wrong, but or hey, look, we can where is that point where we can come together where, hey, we're both going to lose something, but it's for the ultimate bigger game. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to
Kwame
the
Ture was talking about that.
yeah, 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 Kwame,
Yeah.
he wasn't part of this is
Mm-hmm.
Mary Baraka, his brother or his son.
Mm-hmm.
He's the governor in New Jersey right now. I think it's his son. He's the governor, not the governor. I'm sorry. He's a mayor. I'm sorry, of Newark right now. But Amari Baraka and Kwame Ture and all these individuals, they were all on the same page. You had all these nationalists, and you had nationalists and assimilationists. That's how they describe it in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Nationalists and the assimilationists were the politicians who were running off. They were elected to office, and they were mostly elected, and they weren't elected by all Black people. They had white people who were elected.
Mm-hmm.
Shirley Chisholm was another individual. You know what I'm saying? But we just didn't have we have to come together, right? Come together and come under the banner of an agenda, going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to the ADOS FBA movement, man, there's things me personally, I have to draw a line with. You know what I'm saying? And that drawing the line is that, hey, man, any support by a white supremacist, I draw that line. No,
Yeah.
I'm not,
Yeah.
not giving them power, not any way, shape, and or form. Now, I agree with the message, right? I agree with the message, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you don't get my time and you don't get my resource. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Eat the meat, throw out the bone.
Yeah, 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 man. And that's really what it is. You know what I'm saying? And until that happens, until ADOS is disconnected from white supremacist ideology and white supremacist talking points when you're talking anti-immigrant, xenophobic rhetoric, and
Mm-hmm.
until it really focuses on the economic conditions of African Americans, I can't fully support it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can't support it, but I'll gladly have conversations with people about it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Would gladly
That's
have
why I
those.
stopped listening.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it
Mm-hmm.
it really is just people giving out grievances, and their
Mm-hmm.
grievances misplaced. is misplaced, and it's misplaced, and it leads nowhere. It
Hmm.
really doesn't. It really doesn't lead people anywhere other than to stay in place, right? And
Hmm.
doing nothing is not the answer. Doing nothing is never the answer, man. You know what I mean? And also one more thing about the FBA thing, they really have this thing about going against the older generation. They really believe that
Hmm.
the older generation did nothing. And again, that's just not true, man. That's just not true. Those the same people that existed that said they weren't voting, they existed back then too. Like,
Hmm.
I'm not voting, right? And they talk about that in this book. You know what I mean? That they were just people who are like, yeah, I'm not voting. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, we actually addressed that sort of in this conversation where we were just like, yeah, it got to the 70s and then the 90s was like the peak where no, it was really that generation that didn't really do much. The,
yeah, it's not
you,
that they didn't do much. It's that they got wealthy. Like, not wealthy. They started moving up in the upper middle class. And so you just had a bigger population of individuals who decided, well, these issues don't affect me. When Jesse Jackson trying to get black people to vote, in bigger numbers, they were like, yeah, Jesse, I'm not feeling that. I'm fine over here. You know what I'm saying?
well, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying when I'm saying didn't do much. I'm saying it without the nuance and the context
Well, no,
behind
that's
it.
why I had to provide context, because I think
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
a lot of times, when people blanket it like that, you know what I mean? Like, we have to understand, like, we got to add layers to it, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Understand,
yeah.
get people to understand, like, no, look, there was these things going on, you know what I'm
This
saying?
is why you have to listen to Yam saying podcast.
Hey. Yeah, yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? So, people can't be saying that our generation didn't do anything. Can't be saying that the Democrat Party hasn't done anything for black people, because it really is not true. And you are really helping white supremacists when you're doing that. You know what I mean? And the opposition party, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
which votes based on white supremacy and white
Hmm.
nationalism,
Hmm.
and that is the Republican Party. It
Yeah.
always has been the Republican Party, and it always has been conservatism.
Yeah.
Just to say that. So, you know what I mean? So that's it. What I had to say on that. You know what I'm saying? You got anything else, bro?
I'm good, man.
All right, man. Hey, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. And if you're going to tune in, appreciate you getting up, watching this, and we really appreciate it. And we're busy, busy, busy dads. You know what I'm saying? Busy, busy. Husbands and things of that nature, and we try to get content in here, but good content, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that you can walk away and learn. So, you know what I'm saying? So thank you for tuning into us, man, being patient with us. And we will see y'all's later. Have a great weekend. Thanks for enjoying you know what I'm saying, podcast. Peace.
Peace.